Okay, so um back here, I came back here because I want to point out something. Right now, we're on the part where if the mouse is exited, I'm going to start just to recap. Let's understand where we are. We're on the mouse adapter, right? Where we have the click functions, right? So that means when we click on anything on any section on the home screen currently, something's going to happen. For example, when we click on the About Us, then it would redirect us to the About Us page, and then the is on sign up becomes false because we're no longer on the sign up page, right? And we did the same thing for the natural resources, but I commented out because I wanted to explain how these four different type of mouse adapters work. Now, if you don't need them, you can take out the one you don't need. I just want you to be very creative of where and how you put these mouse adapters, okay? We also have another one called the motion adapter, the mouse motion adapter, which basically deals with when you move your cursor into a specific area. It's called the mouse movement. And that's why I'm going to say this one we need to rectify, because I just realized that this is the mouse entered, meaning that because it's a mouse adapter, it is not a motion adapter, meaning that it's just what this and this does, they're kind of related. When you take your mouse into the panel, it will say that you're still on the sign up page. Okay, as long as your cursor is on the panel. And when you take your mouse out of the panel, it will say that you're exiting the page. So again, it really depends on like what you're doing, like what you want to do. So if you take your mouse, because it deals with movement, right? Mouse entered and then mouse exited. So whenever you enter something and you exit something, then that's really right. That's what it does. It controls. So again, like I said, you can decide to, again, not have this within the panel. And just remember, because you're adding the clicks, if you remember, you're adding clicks, go to the very end of your code, like where you had this. You're adding your clicks to your main panel, right? So, I mean, the clicks, the screen clicks function, which contains all of those mouse methods. So, if you look at your main panel, what is the size? The size of your main panel, go up and look at the size. The size of the main panel is 1376 by 768. So basically, if you enter in any area within that size, it will say that mouse has been entered. And if you exit, it will just say mouse has been exited, right? So that's really what happens. And if you want such a thing is that once you exit, then for example, if you're not on the sign for example, this is, you don't even need this, I think we should just take this out, is on sign up, we don't need that. Let's just keep it to be simple, right? When you are exiting the panel, it will say that you are exiting the panel because you took your mouse outside. As long as you take your mouse outside, it will exit the sign up page. And when you are in the panel, and I'm going to take this whole thing out again, okay? So you can delete this whole part we just did now. Just be careful, make sure you know where your opening curly braces and your ending curly braces. When you take all this stuff out, you can just do another message. Keep it simple and just put a message right there saying that you've just do a pop-up option pane. And this is just when you're in the panel, okay? Because remember, you are in the panel. So this is option with a capital O. So this is as simple as it can get, really. You just have to be very creative of like where you use it and in what area. Um, for example, like maybe when you I don't let's say that you have a specific area, right? Let's say not the whole panel, because here you said the whole panel you were adding the screen clicks. Let's say you have a specific area that you want to make that, and I'm going to go down. So let's say somewhere around, where's the main panel again? I'm going towards the end of this thing. So bear with me because I'm trying to find where that screen clicks. I think it's way at the end, or is it way at at the top? Where's that part? Yeah, here. I was looking for this part. So the main panel is the one covering this whole like mouse method. So if you want a specific area, for where you take your mouse in and take it out, then you want the message to show, then you just got to create another label, for example, for like another area. So I think I could show it real quick here. So let's say you create a label. We already had like a label 2, label 3, right? And label 4. And so let's say, just for the testing purposes, let's say after the sign up, the submit, you create like a label. Okay, this will be a label for mouse entered and exited events. So let's call it label 5. Let's put a boundary in a specific area. So the reason I put this text, or this text is there so that you can actually see where this label is. Okay. So I'll show you the difference. When you create a specific area on your screen that you want this mouse entered and mouse exited to work, it's the best way to use it. Okay, so right now we're creating a specific area and we're using a label to do that, and we're setting the x and the y coordinate where that area is going to be, where x is 300, y 600, and we're setting how big that area is going to be, which is using this label. It's going to be 300 by 255. Okay, you don't even have to put a text if you don't want, but that's just for you to identify where the area is supposed to be. Although you could do something like this as well, and you can put a background color. That way you know where it is. So for example, let's say we do label. We created this label, right? Dot set. And let's do background, set background color, I guess. We can set background. What kind of color do you want? Oops, let's finish the text in there. Let's say color white or color yellow, maybe something prominent, or red, so that you can see the area. And then we kind of, well, we put it on the, I don't know if we need to make it an opaque, because, yeah, well, let's make it opaque because it's going to go on the background, on the main panel. And then we add it to our main panel. Opaque means that it's going to go on your main panel. Okay, this line, uh, you can say it means that the background color will be visible. You can see it because it is on the main panel. Okay, so it's on the main panel. Now, once this is done, now you can just add this one, right? You can make this set to the clicks, like to the in and out. That's what I mean. And how you do that is because you're gonna add your clicks to this. But again, be careful, because you can't have two adding. You can't do this twice. Like, you can't say label 5 dot main screen, a main listener, mouse listener, sorry, screen clicks. Because if you do that, you're basically saying this label is the one that's responsible for doing all of these, including the screen clicks. And you want the screen clicks to work for the whole screen, not just for one area. So the best thing for you to do, okay, if you want to do this, the best thing you should do is that you take them out and you go and you create another static mouse adapter. Okay, so at the top, for example, creating another mouse adapter to handle to object for the mouse entered, okay, and exited events for label 5. Okay, so here what you will do is just do this, like that, same thing. You can give it whatever name. You still need a mouse adapter. You can create as many as you want, and you can use them in any screen you want. So you create a mouse adapter and you open curly brace, and then you just do the same thing pretty much like this, the same methods, and then don't forget to put a returned, entered, or exit. So basically you have to return the name of your, your, just return what your, sorry, not the name of your object of your mouse adapter, just like what we did here where we returned the clicks, if you remember, right? So you always have to return it because that's the result. So you're saying that whenever the label, like I take my mouse in that label, it's going to say mouse entered, and when I take it out, it's going to say mouse exited. So, and this adapter, I'm creating it, guys, make sure you understand, I'm creating it specifically for my label 5. Okay? That's, and it's a part on my screen. So this is how creative you can get with these things. So I'm creating it specifically for here. So at this point, I'm coming to add, or you can even do it here just before even anything else, and you can add it, always add it before. You're adding this mouse entered, exited to this label, and you're saying that anytime you take your mouse in, that's area that you defined with label 5, it would say this, and when you take it out of there, it would say this. So let's basically do a pop-up here so you can see. Okay, so I'm changing it from a system.out.print, which is going to show on the console. Let's do it as a pop-up so you can see. So option pane show mouse entered, or you can say you are in the red zone. You are in the red zone, right? Let's say, because the background we put is red zone. And by the way, here again, just be careful with the whole P stuff, right? That. And then here you can do the same thing. You're out of the red zone because that's, where the background color that we're putting for the label 5. And remember, this is for label 5. So you've put two things. Basically, what you've done, I'm scrolling down again, so just follow me. You still have your mouse, your main listener, your mouse clicks. Your clicking still works for your whole panel. But you also have something unique where you're attaching this mouse entered and exited methods to your label 5. So now let's go and let's stop everything and let's clear it. Oh, it's already cleared. Let's run it again. And let's see if we see our red box first, because we're supposed to see the red box so that we know if it's working or not. And that's just an example, remember? So now it's loading up and you see where my red box. Now nothing is popping up. Like, look, you see the red zone. You're in the red zone. And if I say, okay, you've exited the red zone because I came out of there. And so anywhere else, nothing's happening right now. So you see, you're in the red zone. Okay. And now I've exited the red zone because I'm somewhere else. And then if I click on it, you're in the red zone. Okay, you've exited the red zone because you've come out of there. So you see how it works is that it just basically, whenever you're there, you're in the red zone, and whenever you're there, you're in the red zone. You're basically going out of that area. And so you see, we made just this specific area to be that mouse listener for the mouse when you're in mouse entered when you're in here. And so that's what's happening, right? And when you come out of here because you're no longer in the red zone, then it's exiting you like that. So that's what I wanted to show you, how that works. Now for the pressing one, the mouse pressed and release is really when you press your mouse and you release it. I don't know if you heard my click. Press it and you release it. When you do that, you have the mouse pressed and the mouse release working. So you can decide again when they press their mouse anywhere else, then they have the mouse pressed and release. So I'm gonna just pay attention to this coordinate. I'm gonna press and release again. So this we should have another print mouse pressed, mouse released after this coordinates. So let's go back to the VNC, press again, and then release. You see it? I pressed and I released. So you can do that when they do a long press. You say press the mouse, and when you release it, something happens. You're going to be redirected. Okay, that one's because we have the click. But you can do that here. When you press and you release, something's going to happen. Okay, when you press and you release, something's going to happen. So it should be there. Press and release, something like that that pops out. Maybe you want to do a unique feature when someone presses long and releases on any part, not necessarily long, but they just press and release. Then, of course, it will keep doing that press release. So that's where this works. Okay, so I hope it's made clarity for you. And so you just have to be creative, right? You have to be creative. If you don't want this, then you can always just comment it out or delete it. So for now, I'm just going to comment this stuff out. I don't need that, right? I just need the clicking. And I also want to show you one more thing about this mouse adapters. There's also another one that I was talking about, I think, previously, and saying that if you want it such that instead of clicking, right, on any of these options, you want it such that when you go on any of these options, just go on them with your mouse, then it will tell you that you're going to be redirected to whatever the option is. You can also do that, but you're going to need a different adapter for that. It's called a motion adapter. So for now, I'm going to go and comment out my label 5 because I don't really need to show any red column or red box in there. So you can just comment it out or take it out. But I want you to be creative and I want you to apply these different type of mouse adapters. Okay, that's why I'm showing you them. So you can apply them creatively in your Code Hills app. So for now, I'm just going to comment this stuff out. Okay, let's get back to doing the other option I mentioned. So if you want, instead of clicking that you want them to be redirected, you can also do this one called the motion. So it's called static mouse motion adapter, and you give it a name too. And again, it really depends where you want to use it. You can decide wherever you want to use them. It's your decision. Whatever screen, whatever page, you just have to add them just like we did with the label 5. So this one's called motion adapter. Okay, and then you can give it a name, whatever name you want to call it. So let's say options clicked. Okay, like that. And then open curly brace. And again, you always have to return, you have to create an object of them. Don't forget, you always have to do the first thing is create an object. So you write motion adapter, and you create an object. Let's call it options, right? And then you always have to come back here and return that object. So motion adapter. Um, also, you could do, if you prefer, another option, because here we're getting some errors because we need to be able to, we can't use it this way actually. For this one, no, please don't use it this way. Just remember, it's a motion adapter. Don't use it this way. This one, how you would use this motion adapter, unlike the mouse motion adapter, unlike the adapter one, instead of creating, you could do it this way still, but another good way is that, oh, actually, if you did it, give me a moment. Let me see, because it might. What do we need to do? Oh yeah, never mind, guys. We just need to import that. Oops, we just need to import. I think it will be from the java.awt.event.mouse motion adapter. Let's see. Java does abstract cannot be. Okay, so we've got to do a different way. It cannot be instantiated. Okay, let's do it differently. Let's just erase that. I'll show you an easier way. We can do that, but yeah, just to make it faster. Okay, so instead of doing it that way, let's do it such that we can return it as a motion adapter directly. So what we'll do is we'll just say return new motion adapter, yeah, like this, and then open curly brace, and then hit enter. Okay, don't forget to do it this way. And of course, put a semicolon so you don't have an error. So this is pretty easy. Just return it directly. Now, inside here, we only need, there are more methods, by the way, but we're going to use the mouse moved method. That's the one that I was talking about. And so you get your X and your Y coordinates. We've already done this before. So gets the X coordinate of where the user is on, of the mouse, where the user moves the cursor, Let's say moves the cursor. And then this one does the same thing, gets the Y coordinate of where the user moves the cursor. Now we can come and say, let's copy this one for the, what do you call it, for the natural resources. Let's copy the whole block. And then we're going to do it such that when they go on the natural resources, without even clicking on it, if they're on that, like, you still have to get the coordinates, by the way. So you still have to do that system.out.print thingy so you can get the coordinates just like you did with the other one. So here you can change the variables you called X, right? You have to make the same variables. That's why you're getting an error. And so here is also going to be X. And then here's going to be Y. Here's going to be Y as well. Here's gonna be, that's it. So you can still stick with the whole is on sign up thing, right? Because you're still on the sign up page, right? You're on the sign up page, unless when you leave it, then it will go false. So everything else you can come back and take out with comments, take out the commentary, and you're good to go. So you're not doing clicks here. It's no longer about the clicking. It's now because you're not inside the mouse and where's that? You're not inside the mouse clicked event anymore. You're now in the mouse moved event. So this is based on a different type of adapter. This is motion adapter. This one was mouse adapter. So this works also, okay? So basically what you're saying is that you're now in the motion adapter such that when you take your cursor in the area where the natural resources is on your sign up page, then it's supposed to pop this up, and then the sign up goes false and this goes true, just like this one works with the clicking, same thing. So again, you have to go and add this there to your screen, to your panel. So you can add two different adapters to the same panel, right? But you can't expect to do like what we did with label 5, only have a small area and then want that to work. So what I'm trying to say is, if you want to add it to this main panel, even though you've already added your screen clicks before to make the screen clickable, you can still again add the options clicked. You can have different kind of adapters or different kind of motion adapters on the same screen. It's fine, but it's like when the size is the same. But this one was because the label was only a short, like a specific area we wanted to add it to and make that function work for that area, which was the mouse entered and the mouse exited. So this one, we're also adding it to our main panel, to our entire screen, such that it works once they go only on that particular option. And you can add as many options as you want, by the way. Okay, so you can do many options. You could come down here and just continue doing another ifs again, just like you did with the clicked. You can do as many as you want if you want to make it such that once they take their cursor on and move it in a specific area, then it will pop this up. Okay, so now that we've added this to our main panel, that means our main panel is listening to two different things now. It's doing the clicks if they click on anywhere, and it's also doing the thing where it's paying attention to where the mouse is moving into. So let's go and try it and see. So we'll stop our code again. We'll clear past runs and we'll run our VNC. And we'll come over here and let's see if this works, right? So let's test it. So this means that once we take our mouse, like right here, the About Us is still working, by the way. When you click on it, it still works. But remember that the sign up is no longer active because it becomes false. So you have to stop it and rerun it again and run your workflow one more time and then go back again to it. And now let's see, when we don't click, you're hearing my mouse click, and we just come over into the, you see, the natural resources. I didn't click. I just came into it and it says you'll be redirected to your natural resources page. Say, okay, that's it. Now, of course, it's not going to work again because we're having the is on sign up false. Remember, we make it false, and that's what we said here. So even for the mouse motion adapter, we said once this pops up, they've already gone to the natural resources page. So this becomes false, no longer active. They're now in the natural resources page. So again, I just want you to pay attention to what's happening. I'm going to run it again one more time. And I've shown you all the main kinds of adapters and motion adapters, and there are many more. It really depends on how creative you want to be. See, when I come in here, it works again. So it's still working perfectly well. So it depends on how creative you want to be with your app, making it so nice and so cool. So now let's go back into now where we were, right? We left off where we were. So where were we? We were making a method, if you remember. And the method was, I'm trying to look for it. There it is, this one, the password duplicate method. And we stopped at the part where we were creating a statement so that we make it such that the database pays attention to whatever password has been entered when the user is signing up and checks the database to see that there's no duplication of such a password. So now we need to finish it off from where we stopped. So let's continue finishing that off. Okay, so basically, give me one moment so that I can track where we are. So we are on the is password thing. Okay. Um, okay, so we've done that part of the one right before that. Okay. So the is password section, we have our statement right here. Now we need to use the statement to execute a query. So we're going to go stmt.execute. Okay. And let me zoom in a little bit just so that you can see, but although I need to zoom out though when I'm testing this. So we are gonna do this. This is now what we call the SQL language. This is the language that you use to talk to the database. So we're gonna create the table first, because if the table does not already exist, so this means it will create it once. What is the table? It's the users table. It's the one that's gonna store the username and the password. So it is creating it once. That's why we're saying create table if not exist. This is the way you write SQL language. Okay. And I really suggest that you go over to this website and learn a little bit about SQL. Go to W3 Schools and learn about SQL. It's a very, very great language. It's what's being used for databases now to query and talk to it. learn about the simple syntax of SQL, how to select things from your database. Like if you had a database table like this one, you had these tables and you had these number of people that are there or records that are there. If you ran, and the good thing about this website is that you can actually run and test it out. If you write this as an SQL statement, select asterisk. Asterisk means all from the customers table. See what happens is that it displays everything for you from the customers table. Let's say if we decide to select all from the products table, let's change that. You can actually make changes and run it and see. You're supposed to have 77 records displayed. And when you click run SQL, you see that 70 records are displayed and your products is all displayed here in the database. This is what gets to be stored in the backend. So if there is a company that is selling products, like you are going to be creating your business to sell products, your products will have unique product IDs, and that will be what will make each one of them unique. So meaning that would be your primary key in your database. Primary key means what makes the records that are stored in the database unique. Is it the password making them unique? Is it the ID making them unique? Is it what? Is it a code? So in this case, product ID makes each of these products unique. And you can see we even have a supplier ID. And that could be something that we call a foreign key. And so what does that mean? It means that for us to know more details about who this supplier is, because right now we're just seeing one. What does one mean? Who's the supplier? It means that we can actually connect this table to another table called the supplier table. Look at it right there. You see suppliers. It has 29 records in there. So if we want to open this from the database suppliers and we click on run, look what happens. Now you know that the supplier number one is this name. It's this company called Exotic Liquid. So when you saw it related to the product, that was the primary key there. But it is, and I mean, the supplier, sorry, was the supplier ID was the foreign key there, but it is the primary key here. It's what uniquely, this numbers are what uniquely identifies each of these suppliers. But it was also existing in the products table because that's what we say technically in computing is that we call it the foreign key. It's how you can relate one database table to another. Okay, so in this table for the products, the primary key is the product ID. This is what makes each product here unique because they all have unique numberings, right? You can do this numberings, code, whatever, hash codes, anything you want, but it will be unique for each product. But then we have the supplier ID, which was one, and you notice that we can repeat it more than once because it's not a primary key. There can be duplication, but with primary keys that uniquely identify things, there should never be duplication. Just like what we're doing with our app, password is our primary key and it cannot be duplicated. But why we have it here is because it can help connect this table to the supplier table. So we know what supplier we're talking about. So when we make a query, we can query the database that basically telling the database that we want you to show us all the products of all the suppliers of the product Chase. And so it's just gonna, or you can say, show us all the products that have the same supplier one and show us who the supplier is. So basically these products will pop up: Chase, Chang, anise syrup, and what else? That's it. Pretty much that all have ones, right? And it will then connect to the other supplier table and show you details about that supplier because it takes this as the foreign key and connects it to the primary key on that supplier table. I hope this makes sense a little bit, but database is quite an interesting topic on its own. So you can definitely come to this website and learn more about the SQL and how to write it because it's a language that you use to speak to the database when you want to retrieve information from the database as an administrator. And we're going to do that in our app as well to some degree. So here we're saying create table if not exists. Okay, and what is the table? Let's call it users, which would contain the username and password. However, you can call it whatever you want. So I'll call it users, and let's give some spacing. Let's open some things in here. We'll call it password hashed. You can call it whatever. What is it going to contain? So hash password, password hash. And that password that is hash is actually a text because it's made up of letters and numbers and all that stuff. And don't forget to, oh, sorry about that. This is actually supposed to be part in here. So create a table. No, my bad. What am I doing? And then at the end here, I just want to make sure you're supposed to have a semicolon, a quotation, and closing parenthesis, and this. Really be careful with the way how you're ending this. Look at how I wrote it. So we are going to have the hash password, or you can call it password hash, whatever, or hash, let's make it make sense. Hashed password. Okay, that's going to be the text, the one that we use with the SHA256 to hash the password. It's text data type because it's made up of letters and numbers. Then it's also going to be our primary key. You must indicate that. That's how we're uniquely identifying every user here. So this is our primary key. And then we're going to have the username. So you notice that we put the primary key first, even though you'd be wondering, why don't we put the username first and then the hash password? Well, because the username isn't the primary key, the hash password is. So just like you saw here in all of these tables, the primary keys always start at the beginning, whether it's the suppliers, I need to delete that. Whether it's the supplies table or any kind of table, you would always see that it's always starting at the beginning, always. Like the first column in the database is always, in the database table is always the primary key, always, always, always. Even if you change it and go to the orders table, right, you'll still see the order ID is going to be the one starting at the beginning. You see that? It changes. It's always that. So it's the reason why we are having the hash password starting first, because that's our primary key. The username is a text. Let's put a validation. You can also put validation checks, just like we did with the sign up page where we said if they didn't enter text or if they left it blank and all that stuff. Here we say the username is made up of text because that's the type of username we're expecting them to enter. And we will also put a validation check saying it should not be null. So, not null means that it should not be left blank. Okay, they have to put in data. Now, once we're done with that, we come here and we close our statement. So we do close like that, pretty much this. And then now we're going to create a query. Remember, we're still in the try block. Try meaning we're telling the compiler to try and run all this stuff. And then catch meaning if there's any error, catch whatever the error is. Okay. And you can, like I said, you can still print out the error if you want specifically. Just do this. And then when you say get message, because E is the object of this exception, this error, so it will get whatever the error may be. Maybe it cannot connect to the database table, something. Whatever it is, it will let you know. Okay, so now we're going to put a query. We're going to be querying to count. So we're going to insert a query to count or to check, maybe to check makes more sense, if the password already exists in the database. Okay, that's what we're doing. So we're going to start with the query. And so the query is we're going to say select all from the users where the hash password is equal to question mark, we don't know, right? We don't know what it is. So what does that mean? It means that we don't know what the hash password is going to be. So it could pretty much be anything. We don't know what it is. They're going to type a password. We don't know what the password will be, but we're trying to select all. Asterisk means all in computing. I hope you know by now. And we're selecting all the records from the user's table. All is the asterisk. And if you go back here, I'm pretty sure if you come over to the syntax of this, you'd see how we use this select all a lot of times. When you say select all from specific things, then you're saying from the specific table. And then you say where, and where is usually a command. Like here, if you check SQL where, it says from where what is the condition? Select all, you're saying all the records from the customers table where their country is Mexico. So if you try to run this, it means that it will look at the customers, which has 91 records, and it will only display the ones that have their country as Mexico. So if I run this query, you will see that these are all of the people that they're only this ones, their primary key customer IDs. These are only the records from the customers database table that have their country as Mexico. So that's the where. That's what where does. It sets a condition. So we're saying where the hash password question mark meaning that if it matches the one that is being entered by the user, which we don't know. So question mark. So we will know when they enter it, of course. Now, when we come here, we will create a prepared statement. And prepared statement is basically saying that you're preparing to run this statement that you just wrote now. And I'm going to create an object PSTMT, prepared statement, so hence the acronym, but you can call it whatever you want. And then you say prepare statement. This is really how you write it. And of course, you're going to put, what are you trying to prepare? What statement? We're trying to prepare the query right now, right? And then you put a semicolon. So just be careful with what you're doing there. Now we're going to set the string. What is our password that we're trying to set to check? So set string means we're making the records that we need to check to see if it exists in a database, and that's going to be password one. And where did we get that from? From here, we created a method with an argument, and the argument was password one. So we are taking that password one, and we're trying to, and remember what password one is. It's the one that they type in the password text box after we've checked that the password and the confirmed password match. We take that password, and that's what we're going to check against to see if it exists in the database. That's what we're doing up until here. Okay. So after that, we create a result set. A result set is something that is in, again, SQL that returns a result for us. We can call it whatever. You can call it result if you want, or anything you want, and we will execute our query. So the query is this one, right? The query. This is how we write a query. Query is that, starting with these statements. We're going to be executing this query. Okay, so we're going to be executing and running this query, hence the reason why we are creating a result set, because we want to run the query and see if, of course, the password that the user is entering exists. So you have to create this result set object, and we called it result. That basically displays to us the result, checks if the result is greater than one. Greater than zero, sorry. Greater than zero means that yes, that password actually does exist in the database because it's returning anything from one, right? The result set returns either a one or a zero, or returns greater than, just let's say it returns any number between a zero or one, or let's just keep it between zero and one. Zero meaning that it does not exist. One means that it's already in the database. So now we're going to create another variable. And let's say, okay, let's say if result set dot next, we can actually do it this way too, really. And but there is also an easier way to do this. Um, Return true, and we can just basically pop up, uh, I think I prefer to do it a different way. I'll just show you. So we're going to create a Boolean statement, and Boolean means we're going to create a variable duplicated password to check if the password is already present. And so we're going to say equals if result dot next. We're going to put two conditions. That means if the password is checked and already exists, and let's put and before that, and result dot get string equals to this. So like we could do it this way, where we say if the hash password is equal to whatever we have in the database, or we can say if result will use an integer. We can do different ways really to check. Dot int, and then we open parentheses and we say if it is, if we return anything greater than zero, then that means that the password is existing. Okay, because we're returning one, meaning one, what does it mean? It means it found a record. It found one record. So anything greater than zero, that means just one itself is, we don't need two, three, four. We just need if it's greater than zero, meaning starting from just at one and stopping there, then it means the password already exists. So in this case, we are going to close our statement and then our prepared statement and return what the result is. Return the duplicated password. Not necessarily the duplicated password, but when we say return, we usually do that for methods that have these Boolean or string. We have to return something. You realized it by now. So we're returning the results. That means that the password is actually duplicated. So at this point, really, that's pretty much it. You can take out this return false that I told you we didn't need at the beginning. We don't need that. Take that out because you're going to get a red line. And this is all what you need to check if the password is duplicated. That's pretty much the only method, guys. Now we're gonna go, before we go and actually put this in our, to test it out, because we don't have a database yet, we need to create a database before we actually execute this with our database table called users. So we're gonna create one called save to database, which means that if the password, if the actually we did create a database, my bad, we did have it here, my mistake, and we created a table, so we can still test this out, but I would prefer that we do the other one, which is save to database, and also we have to do the one for generating the Imigongo pattern. So I would say let's go from here. Why don't we go generating the Imigongo pattern? Right? Because that's really what we need to do right now. We need to generate the Imigongo pattern, which is the one that would help us to display the Imigongo design, which is like a cybersecurity batch that will determine if the person is eligible to sign in or not. I mean, to sign up or not. Like when it checks that the password is not duplicated, right? And then it will now return the Imigongo pattern, which is the cybersecurity batch for that particular user. And then, of course, they would click save and or sign up button, sorry. And once they click the sign up button, then it saves to the database. So before we do the save to the database method, let's do the one for the Imigongo pattern. So I would prefer to go up here again, just keep creating my methods here. Wherever you want, really, you can do it. So we're going to start off by creating the method that would actually generate the Imigongo pattern. Okay, so the Imigongo pattern based off on the pattern you choose. And so I want to explain that actually to make sense. So what I'm going to do is I want you to pay attention, because if you go online, there are different type of obviously Rwandan Imigongo patterns and designs. Whichever one you decide to choose is the one that I'll show you how you can generate a code for. Okay, and that's just going to make it faster for you because you need specific codes to make these type of designs. So I chose this Imigongo pattern to be my batch, my cybersecurity batch, but it will actually change these inner square colors or rhombus. It will change this inner rhombus colors randomly, and it's just random. It happens randomly based on the hash password. So if you want something like this as well, and you just have to generate the code for the pattern, and I'll show you again how to do that. There's actually a prompt that is here, and I believe the prompt, let me just have it. Yeah, there's a prompt that I'm going to give you to type it in. You would just say, using the same code blocks below as a reference, write me a similar Java code to generate the design pattern for the picture attached here. And then you just paste this code because this is the code we're going to do now. But this code is used to generate this type of Imigongo pattern. Okay. And you can do, but if you want to do a different design, you go online and you take a screenshot. And what I mean is you go online, for example, and you go and you look for Imigongo patterns. Okay. And you look for, I don't know, anything you want. Like, let's say you want this one. Just take a screenshot of this. You can take a screenshot from here even. Let me hit enter again. Yeah, so from like this, you just take a screenshot, see what I'm doing, something like that, and then you just save it up. And then when you enter this prompt, which I'm going to show you how and where, when you enter this prompt and you use the code blocks that we're going to do now for this Imigongo pattern that I have, that I'm going to do, and I'm going to upload it for you in the Google Classroom. And this is the code blocks we're going to be typing in. So when you enter that in, and then you upload this picture that you just took a screenshot of, right? The picture that we just took a screenshot of, which is this one. If you upload it, then the computer, the AI that we're going to use would actually give you a similar Java code block that can make this sort of pattern. That's what I'm trying to say. So I'll show you how it works anyways. Let's get back to our code. Okay, so static. We need a specific area where to show the Imigongo pattern on our VNC, like on our sign up page. So let's create it first and then we'll go into that. So we call this Imigongo hash panel. Okay, we're going to extend the J panel. And then, of course, open curly brace and keep moving on from there. And then in here, we're going to create a current hash, which we are basically generating this pattern based on the hash password. So don't forget that. So private string, let's call this current hash. We create a variable. And I will go back and explain what some of these code lines are because I did make notes and I said I was going to explain them. So I will explain them. Now we're going to create another method inside. You notice that I'm creating a class here. I hope you understood. This is a class, right? The whole code we have is in a class. And so I'm creating a class right now. So I'm creating a class in a class. It's possible. It's possible to create a class inside of a class, but it's not possible to create a method inside of another method. So I can't do this. I can't copy this and then go and paste it inside of another method. Like, I don't know, let's say I'm pasting it here. I can't do that. So you see, I'm going to get, let's paste it. I'm going to get an error. It's not possible. I'm already getting an error. Illegal. So it can't go. Another method can never go inside of another method in Java. You would always have methods on their own, and classes, however, can go inside of a class. So we're creating a specific class because we're trying to generate a pattern here. We're going to use the graphics component of the swing library to generate this pattern that we want. So now I'm going to create a method, which is why I'm able to create a method inside of a class, but not inside of another method. So I'm going to call this one Imigongo hash panel. Okay, same as I'm creating a constructor now. Sorry, this is not a method, a constructor. Constructor means anything that has the same name as a class. And the constructor is the one that's going to define how we create these Imigongo patterns, which are going to be objects. Okay, so they're going to be objects. Why they're objects? Because we're going to have different color patterns. Like we're not going to have, and I think I can quickly show you what I mean. Let me show you what I mean so you understand. Um, so I'm running some prototype that's already done for this for this sign up page. Okay, I want you to pay attention. Hopefully, I can get it to run real quick. Let me stop and clear all past runs, and let's go over to run the VNC. So let's see. Okay, so pay attention. This is an actual done sort of thing program. Okay, for the sign up for the code 1001 Code Hills app. Now I'm going to try and sign up here and do something like Pally, right? And let's say I try to click done. Is it going to work? No, I can't leave my fields blank. Okay, let's go for, again, Pally. And I'll go Pally, Pally password. Oops, let me type that again. Pally password. I hope I wrote that right. I might have made a mistake, but let's see. Pally password. Okay, let's say I click done. You see the type of Imigongo pattern that I generated? That's what I'm talking about. How do we generate that? That's gonna go in a class. And now if I try to let's say I try to, I don't know, change something about this. Let's say I do pally op. I could actually do that because I'm trying to put a different thing. I'll add the op in front of that. And now when I try to click on done, and you see that the pattern changes because the password's different. So that's what I'm saying. We're trying to make it such that it gives these unique cybersecurity badges, but it's a Rwandan touch to this because Imogongo is Rwandan. So it gives that unique cybersecurity badge, meaning that the sign up information has to be authenticated and it's unique Rwandan, right? So that's what we're trying to do. So now I'm going to stop this and clear this past run, and I'll close this because we don't need that. Let's go back into our code and continue. So we're creating a constructor to do that, right? And then in our constructor, we're gonna set the size of our Imogongo, what is gonna be like what you just saw now, the little size. So preferred size, we'll go a new dimension, and we're gonna put a dimension maybe in terms of width like 55 pixels and height. Let's just make it a square box like what you just saw, square size. I'm talking about the size. By the way, why don't we look at the nodes simultaneously? So the nodes I'm talking about, let's go back, this size, this square size, that's 55 by 55. Okay, and then these are the code blocks that we're going to use to generate this pattern, and each line is explaining what it generates in the Imogongo pattern that I chose. The first line is basically generating the inner one, the inner rhombus, and then the second line, and so it generates the inner ring, for example. And that's what's happening. We have to have like a central point, and that's what the first one is doing, the get width part. It's finding the horizontal center. And what does that do? And let's zoom in. It says the get width, and you're going to see that method. We're going to returns how wide the tile is in the pixels. So 55 pixels, dividing by 2, then gives the pixel position of the exact horizontal middle, which is like a 27. So you're making like a point to start to make these rhombuses come out. This value is stored as the CX, which you saw here, meaning center. Okay, center X. So every diamond ring, what does this design need, or why do we need this in the design? Is because every diamond ring, and we talk about diamond rings, which means these squares because they look like rhombus, like diamonds, right? Rhombus shapes. So every diamond ring in the tile is drawn around the single center point. Without this single center point, we can't really draw these because we have to space them out accordingly. So we kind of like need a center point to do that. So without that, the diamonds could not be placed at the middle of the tile. They would sit off to one side and the pattern would look unbalanced. So we need a center point for that. Okay, so let's get back to our code again. So we've put the size for this. Now we put a background because the background really depends on what kind of background. Remember my Imigongo had like a black background, the one I just showed you? I want to maintain that. So, and also it's, if you see it here, the background is black because the colors of the rings would show very well. So I'm going to maintain a black background and we continue. So now off to the next part of this. We've done that. So this method is responsible for the hashing of the, like the panel setting the size. So that's like the first part, sets the size of the Imigongo pattern and also the background color. Now the next one is to update the Imigongo. What does that mean? It means whenever a new user comes and sign up, we have different type of Imigongo patterns that would show, as you saw. The rings would be different colors. Some would be green, some would be yellow, some would be blue. Really depends. So this is what we're doing. We're doing the update hash method. So update hash, and then of course we're gonna pass the string hash. Okay, and then we're gonna open curly brace, and then this, we're gonna use this keyword, this dot current hash. So whatever the hash is, it has to update, it has to change. So hash equal hash. And then we're going to repaint the Imigongo again because now we're going to be showing different colors depending on the different users and the different passwords that's being entered. So that's what repaint does. Again, we're coming to that part. Now, the next thing is to draw the Imigongo. So we draw it according to, making sure that we actually have a hashed password. We can't draw an Imigongo if there's no hash password. The hash password is like the direction in the way the Imigongo pattern is going to be drawn and the colors that's going to be applied to it. So we come out of here and we create and we do an override. So overriding the method. You could do this, you could decide not to do it, by the way. Yeah. So we're going to do this and we're going to open curly brace. And so override, what does this do, by the way? Okay, so the override, at override, what it does is that it just means the method is overriding the method in the parent class, meaning that we have the parent class, and every time, because we're generating different Imigongo patterns, so every time the password will be hashed, we will override the old one and generate the new one. Override the old one, generate the new one. So that's why we're putting an override there, and it's just overriding the main class in doing so. So here we're creating this protected void paint component package. This void paint component is the name of the method, but we're now going to be using the graphics class so we can actually draw the Imigongo pattern. And protected means, I told you before, we have public, private, protected. It just depends on where you will access this particular method. So when you say protected, means that you can access it only with classes that are within the same package. And so these classes refer to this one, refer to this one, because they're in the same package. And what we mean by package, meaning they're in the same like section where you are, like here. They're in the same place, the same area, the same package, because we're all inside. If you realize, you're inside the source folder. Okay, so when we say package, for example, all of my files are in Java app, but it doesn't mean that your all files need to be there. But it just means that the package is having that, like it's all in one place. They all can talk to each other. That's what protected means. If you say private, it means that only this class can use it. But if you create another class, even if it's in the same package, it can't use this method unless you go by one of the object-oriented programming concepts. I don't want to go more technical for people who will not understand this, but for people who are coding, definitely will understand what's going on. So I'm going to go now using the keyword super.paint. This means super. What does it mean? Like I told you, anytime a new pattern, Imigongo pattern, is generated, the old one goes, the new one comes in. So we're going to just use this paint component, the name of our method, and we're going to pass G, put semicolon. Now we're going to put a condition, and so the condition will be if current hash, okay, current hash equal null or is empty, right? Then we will return something. Nothing, sorry. We return nothing because we don't have a hash password. So how are we going to generate the Imigongo pattern? And then of course, if not, then we can now start to make you notice I just gave a space. You could do that. We start to design the Imigongo design. So we're going to use this graphics 2D class to do this. And we're going to create an object. So let's call it G2D. You can call this whatever you want again. It's just creating an object of this class so we can actually generate the Imigongo pattern. So we're going to do the G2D. This is where we do G2D dot set rendering hint. Means that we're trying to make sure that we render and align the things that we need in this pattern. So I'll explain it. Rendering hint. Just copy this first. And then we're going to go rendering hint dot key analyzing. Yeah, we can actually use this for the AI is giving me that. So yes, just use it, hit the enter key, and I'll explain what this is. And rendering hint dot value dot, we actually need dot analysis on. So this is going to work for us like that. And put a semicolon. So what does this whole line? So this whole line or this line makes the drawing smooth. Okay, the drawing of what? Of the Imigongo pattern and anti-aliased. Okay, aliased means that it's not going to be meaning, right? That the edges will be smooth and not jagged. So it's just making the drawing of the Imigongo smooth so it comes out nice because you're trying to replicate a pattern that you got from when you uploaded the picture and you asked the AI to give you a sample code that can replicate that pattern. So you're trying to do that. Hence, we're trying to get the exact same thing. So the Imigongo pattern makes the drawing of the Imigongo pattern to be smooth and anti-aliased. Okay, so that's really what's happening there. Now, the next part of that, going down from there, is to set G2D. We're going to set the color. Okay, so set the color as we said, because before we set the background color, that's two different things. This is now setting the color for the Imigongo outline. So we're setting the color.black. Okay, and put a semicolon. So this is what's going on. Oh, and black is in the capital letters, by the way. Please make sure you do that so you don't get any errors. And so what's happening is setting the color of the drawing to black. That means the outline color, right? To outline the Imigongo pattern. Now, the next thing is we're going to fill the rectangle because we use the word fill rect, but in all sense, it's actually a square. So we need to fill this whole thing with black as well because these rhombus diamonds are going to be drawn on it to make this pattern work. So we're going to come back and we're going to do the GD2 dot fill rect, and this is how we fill it. So we get the x, the y coordinate like you know, and we get the width and the height, and of course the width and height was what we got from here, 55 pixels by 55 pixels. So fill the rectangle with the color black. In rectangle, in all sense, it actually is, in all sense, it is the square looking like, Imigongo, the background. Square looking like Imigongo background. Okay, that's really what we mean. But we don't have like set like fill square, so we use fill rect, but we adjust it into a square. Okay, now we're coming back into more of the technical stuff. So now we go into the int. You can actually do the color drawing to white if you want it, but yeah, we're not going to do that. We don't need it. We've already set it to black. So we're going to do int seed, create a variable called seed, which is going to be a whole number, and that will help us to generate the different type of color patterns. Okay, so different type of color patterns. However, in another example that I'll show you how you can actually generate your code for your Imigongo design, you could set your own RGB color patterns yourself. But here we're making the compiler generate the different type of RGB color codes, sorry, not patterns, color codes, because it's int in whole numbers. So it just replicates and shows different colors on the Imigongo design. So here we're going to say equals to mat.app. Absolute, abs means absolute, like in math, if you know what absolute means, making something positive, right? And then here is hash. And then of course you go hash code. And then here you put this and you put semicolon. So what does this mean? This value just converts the hash password to an integer, which will then be a seed for a random number that's generated, which, like I told you, which would eventually be the number for the color, would eventually be the number four, right, for the Imigongo pattern. Now, the next thing we do is create the colors library. So the number, like I told you, the one above would be for generating the Imigongo pattern. So now let's get back here. We create a colors class, and then we call it colors equal colors. Now this is like where you can put your colors, by the way. Like this is how many, like you can put as many colors as you want. Okay, so this is where you can play around here and put colors based on your RGB choice, color values. Okay, so whatever colors you want. So in this case, by the way, this is not colors with S, but color as in with one S, with no S. And then you open and you put the different type of colors that you want to color those diamond rings in the Imigongo, pattern whenever it's generated to signify that the user is signed up successfully. So here we will put the colors.